So in the previous episode, we talked about the early season. And in the very first episode about the system, we talked about early season, pre-rut, peak rut, post-rut, late season. So we already talked about the early season. Now let's talk about pre-rut. Pre-rut gets to be a little bit interesting because with the mature bulls that we're looking for, they're starting to transition from that period where food and water are primary needs, and now breeding starts to enter the equation. Food and water are still heavy primary needs in early September, which is this pre-rut period that I talk about. And it's not like elk turn the page on the calendar and say, oh, today is supposed to be the pre-rut period. As you all know, it's this influx period, but these general periods I'm talking about are valid. And for me, if I have a tag that's from September 1st to about September 10th or 12th, I'm thinking pre-rut. When an elk's coming out of the early season into the pre-rut period, the young bulls and the cows are usually in a slightly different location, but the big bulls have now left their high altitudes or their canyons or wherever they've spent this summer getting fat. And they're starting to get closer to the herds of cows. And they might come in and meander through and check and see what's going on. But at the start of this pre-rut period, they're still not heated up, wound up. You'll see them occasionally. They might make a bugle here and there. You're probably not going to find the biggest bulls in with the herds of cows at this point. But as the pre-rut period gets closer and closer to the peak rut period, the bulls start getting closer and closer to the cow herds. Water and food start dropping down the priority list, and the number one priority starts rising up to be breeding. And shortly behind that is water and then food. And sanctuary is somewhere further down the list. So if it's early September, like September 1st through the 4th, be thinking more about food and water. Where are they going to go to satisfy those needs? You're going to find them in places where there's food and water. As it gets closer to the peak rut and food and water drop down the list, start hunting closer to the cows and the young bull groups. It's, you know, the pre-rut and the peak rut are the easiest times to find bull elk. The hardest part about killing an elk is finding an elk, at least a public land elk. It's that simple. To kill a bull, you have to be able to find a bull. And this entire series about the system is just that, helping you find the bulls. And so we've talked about the early season and the pre-rut season of the calendar cycle I'm talking about. And those are the easiest periods. They're the periods where not a lot changes, where you're gonna be able to go out in the woods and you're probably gonna find elk. They're far more visible, they're far more active. If you can find water, you're probably gonna find them. If you can find good food, you're probably gonna find them. So many times we ignore the obvious. We just get excited, we go and do this, we go and do that. And if you can kind of pull yourself back mentally and remember, these are the critical components. These are the calendar periods. Here's the needs in each calendar period. That is going to be your path to success in finding an elk. Once you find an elk, I know all of you watching are probably better than I am at killing an elk.